The final few words in this week's episode of Violet Evergarden completely sum up perfectly why Violet's letter was so spot on for her client, who just so happens to be probably her new best friend, or at least I hope so. The fact that Violet was able to convey, even though it was very basic, it was only a couple of sentences, she was able to finally convey her client's feelings towards her brother, something that she couldn't say for so long, and even though it was very simple, she didn't need to convey some very overly convoluted words, she just needed to tell her client's brother that she's happy he's around. The guy who's been drinking himself to death, beating himself up because he blames himself for his parents' death and the fact that he thinks he's worthless. All he needed to hear was that his sister loves him and that she's thankful that he's around. And I think this is just such the perfect ending point for episode 3, because what I really liked with this episode is we throw Violet into essentially school. It's a training school to become a doll, and right off the bat you see she is completely, almost in a lot of ways, she's OP. She's very overpowered for this school. Her technical skills are just perfect. The classmates are just wowed. But what I love what they've been doing with Violet is they don't make her so amazing right off the bat. Even though she has the technical skill, she doesn't have the most important skill, ability to understand human emotions, which is arguably probably the most important aspect to be able to ghostwrite for someone. And the fact that she fails her school initially is something that's great, because it'd be like if you're watching a battle shonen and the character had all of his powers mastered at the beginning of episode 1. That's not going to be very fun. You want to watch the character build into that, so I like how the fact that the most important thing that Violet needs for this job she doesn't have yet, but we're already starting to see progress on her getting there. Of course, her letter wasn't overly deep, it wasn't this like immaculate letter that's going to blow everyone away, but for this specific case, it was the perfect letter. Having it just go on for paragraphs probably wouldn't have been as important to this brother as just letting him know that his sister loves him and that he's not a failure. That was absolutely enough, and how they built up to that letter I think was absolutely spot on. And yes, you could argue that, is she really ready for the real world of being a doll with just that one letter? Probably not, but she has the technical skills and she's already shown promise that she's starting to understand emotions, and I think over time, the more letters she makes, obviously she's probably going to have some more failures as well. Hopefully her job's going to proofread some letters, but still, I think this was the perfect episode. At episode 3, this is going to be a 14-episode series if I'm not mistaken. It really feels like we made progress with Violet. We're starting to see that she's starting to understand emotions a bit more. I mean, she's literally a robot. Like, of course she has her metal hand, but she essentially acts like a robot because she was a soldier her entire life. I mean, literally at the start of class, she gets up, salutes the teacher, and then even asks her, how many words a minute do you want me to type? Like, she's literally a machine, she's a weapon, but we're building up into her being a person, which some people criticize. For me, that's like one of my favorite character types. I just loved how this episode functioned. I really feel like they're doing a lot with Violet's character in only 3 episodes. Obviously, we have so much more to do. They're not making her just perfect right off the bat. Even though she is perfect in aspects, she is still very, very flawed as an individual, especially when her role is literally to understand emotions. She doesn't even understand the words I love you. Of course, she's not 100% suited for this role, but I love how even though she is so horrible for the role, she's also perfect in her own way, and I think that she has so much promise and so much flaws. I think it makes her a much more interesting character to follow. Like, even though she is so perfect in so many ways, she's not flawless. She does have flaws, and the flaw that she does have is the most important trait that she needs for this job. And I just think the way they're introducing the side cast here, I'm hoping that the character we get introduced to this week, the one who essentially got her letter ghostwritten by Violet, stays important to the series. If not, she was a great addition. I loved her backstory with her family. I thought it was actually really well written and really got the point across, and I think it was just the perfect letter to be wrote for someone like Violet, who's still very new to understanding emotions, but her heartbreak and her just giving out all of her emotions to Violet in that last scene there, or one of the last scenes, was the perfect way to show us why Violet in that instance understood emotions even without totally understanding it. And I think the way they directed this episode was absolutely spot on. It didn't really feel like your typical school episode. Like, obviously it's not the traditional school, it's just like a training school. I mean, many jobs have like a training classroom and things like that, but I like how they didn't beat around the bush. They got it in and out very quickly. It was 1 episode, but I still felt like we got to see a lot of progress with Violet, but also a lot of failures, especially with some of the early ghostwriting in that course, but also we got to see how good she is when it comes to the technical skills, her vocabulary, and if she could just understand emotions better, her vocabulary would just be out of this park here. But still, this was a great episode. Visually, once again, I think it was on point. I didn't notice a major dip in quality. I think consistency is the key to the series, and they're very consistent. We're getting the openings, we're getting the endings. It's all just well polished, but the thing that sells me on this series, it could have the worst visuals, but it's just these characters. I am so just entranced by Violet as a character, and some people absolutely find Violet boring, and like I said last week, I get to understand why some people do, but I like seeing this robotic character who obviously has a reason for being robotic, trained as a soldier all her life, grow into such an interesting role, and I just think the setting is just unique overall. It makes it such an interesting series and why it's my favorite anime of this season. The season isn't really wowing me, there isn't too many anime I'm following weekly, but this series is more than enough to keep me excited each and every week. I absolutely adored episode 3, easily my favorite episode of the 3 so far. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think of episode 3 and Violet's amazing growth? What did you think? Let me know down in that comment section below. And before you leave, smack that like button to show your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.